This is the mini lesson on the introduction to toxicology. Forensics toxicologists have several responsibilities when investigating a crime that involves toxins or drugs. They have to analyze evidence from the crime scene to determine if there are any toxins or drugs present. They have to determine if there is drug present, if it was used legitimately, and then they need to analyze evidence from drug facilitated crimes. Toxicology is the study of drugs, poisons, and toxins, and this includes the metabolites, which are the byproducts formed when a body metabolizes a drug. So your body will, once it's in drugs ingested, your body will begin to break it down into other substances, and those substances are called metabolites. Poisons are natural or manufactured chemicals. So, for example, arsenic, shown here, is a poison, and then rat poison, which is manufactured for the killing of rodents, is also a poison. Toxins occur naturally, so they're just naturally poisonous to us. So, ricin, which is this flower right here, and rattlesnake venom are known as toxins. A toxicologist will examine the effects of harmful substances on the body. They then establish a cause and effect scenario and develop treatments and techniques for the detections of these toxins. Some history about toxicology. The first mention of a poison was Socrates drinking the poisonous hemlock in 399 BC, and this was his punishment given to him for um, something about harming the youth or young children. In the 1600s, poisoning was very common. People were paid to poison others, so it was a profession. And this was because you couldn't really detect poisons at this time in human tissue. So it was easy to give someone a poison and people would think they died naturally. Arsenic was commonly used in families to kill off the older parents so that the children could inherit the money. So it became known as the inheritance powder. In the 1800s, so a couple of hundred years later, we were able to identify poisons using chemical analysis in human tissue. And this was done by Matteo Orfila and Robert Christensen, the first forensic toxicologist. Uh, 1918 New York City. So this is right about the time of Prohibition where alcohol became illegal. And there was a lot of instances of poisoning due to people trying to manufacture their own alcohol or drinking other things to get the same effects. So we had the first medical examiner, Charles Norris, and he hired Alexander Gettler, who developed the first toxicology lab in New York City. And they were really responsible for learning how to analyze this evidence and be able to present it in a court of law in order to hold people responsible for toxins and poisons causing harm to others. The Food and Drug Administration was developed in 1959, and this was really established to protect people from any kind of food, drug, or cosmetic that could contain toxic components. Before this, manufacturers, and you got to think industrialism and stuff, they weren't really being held responsible for creating something that would cause harm to others. So with this administration, you started to have more control over food and drugs. In 1970, the Controlled Substances Act established the drug policy in the United States, and it set up penalties for possession, use, and distribution of drugs that had been classified as illegal in the United States. In 2018, with this large increase in our prison population, the First Step Act revised some of the harsher penalties for drug use in the federal prison system. So states still make up their own rules, but federally, they try to give the judges more um, ability to make up their mind based on a case by case scenario. And it was in a way to try to provide an alternative for low risk offenders. So people that just had substance abuse problems, they tried to put them into treatment programs just to prevent them from getting in trouble over and over again for the same crime. So it's not really common much long anymore for people to be murdered using poisons because the forensic um, detection of these chemicals has become so robust. So really less than 0.5% of murders involve poisoning, but some well-known ones. 1978, a Bulgarian descendant, Georgy Markov, was stabbed with an umbrella, and at the end of the umbrella was a ricin capsule. So that was able to kill him. Some Tylenol was tampered with, and it ended up killing 7 people in 1982. Right after September 11th, whenever the country was kind of in this fear of terrorism, there was a lot of anthrax envelopes sent through the mail to major TV networks. So that was in 2001. 2006, we had Alexander Litvinenko. He was an ex-Russian spy, and he was poisoned with polonium, which is a radioactive element. Uh, Not too long ago, about 5 years ago, a former Russian double agent spy, Sergei Skripal, him and his daughter were poisoned with a nerve agent, and it happened on an airline flight. And then the biggest thing now with poisonings is fentanyl additives being added to opioids in order to increase the profit of drug dealers is causing a big increase in the amount of overdose deaths due to opioids. All right, so glue your notes in your notebook, show them to me so I can give you a stamp.